So I would make sure in the application that, again, everything, your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. You make sure that you've given us everything that you have done. I think some people skip out on stuff. They forget about things they actually have done. That might be beneficial that we know that.
Do you ever have so many questions and no one to ask, so they're just wasting away on Google searches you'll forget about in an hour or so?
We had that same problem, and that's why we created the RD2B podcast, a resource for dietetic and nutrition students looking for answers that their peers don't have.
We are students Macy and Emily and registered dietitian Carl Barnes. We engage in conversations and learn from RDs.
Join us weekly as we gain insight into the unique journeys of registered dietitians all over the country.
Okay, my name is Byron Richard. I'm the clinical nutrition manager from UC San Diego Health, obviously in San Diego, California.
Awesome. So how would you describe your current role at the university's dietetic internship?
Well, my current role, I'm the clinical nutrition manager, which oversees the internship program, but it has its own director. She is on maternity leave, so you get me today. So it's been a very interesting few months having to pinch hit. So my role again is just assuring that our 10 dietetic interns are being precepted properly. They're learning what they need to be successful dietitians in the future. As well as, of course, as a clinical nutrition manager, overseeing all the other clinical nutrition staff, which includes about 30 people, mostly registered dietitians, and then we have quite a few dietechs registered.
Great. So how do you spend your typical work day?
I wish it was, I could say it was very organized. I could give you one answer, but that's not true. There are lots of meetings, some formal, lots of informal meetings with people who need information that you're holding or permission to do something. So I do a lot of organization and meetings with various staff, and again, assuring that they have all the tools and resources they need to do their jobs properly. For instance, today I had a long conversation with a dietitian that we went through his process for nutrition intervention for hepatology patients. So that was interesting. That doesn't happen all the time, but that's a typical event that may happen. It came up, and so it needed to be discussed. Other than that, it's right now, at least assuring, touching base with dietetic interns when I see them, because they're a little bit more fragile than our dietitians. So I make sure that they're on the right path.
Most definitely. So what did the transition look like for you when you stepped into the director role?
Oh, it wasn't that much of a transition. I mean, she and the dietetic internship director, she had been a supervisor under me previously. So, and this will be her second year as a dietetic internship director. So I think that first year with her as an interim, I learned a lot because we had to learn together, because the previous one had left us after 10 years. So we had to figure out some stuff. So what the transition wasn't challenging. I mean, the time commitment is a bit more of a challenge, because you have now 10 interns that you're having to oversee rather than having a separate person do that. But that wasn't that challenging. So and you will know that when you become a dietitian, that's pretty easy actually. So.
Awesome. So I know you said 10 students are in your program. How many students typically apply to your dietetic internship?
Around 125 students we have apply. And that would be the answer to that question. We probably interview about a third of those. So, and then we select 10 out of that. And well, they select us as well. So
Most definitely. So what makes a candidate stand out to you during that interview process?
Well, yeah, and two things. Yeah, it's a good question. But first, that once we selected those 40, about a third, the slate is wiped clean. So we really determine the next step or our choices based on our interview process, which is pretty brief, but I think it's very telling. And then we can refer to the application we need to. I would look in the interview process. Obviously, it's all new because everything's virtual today. So I guess it always has been, but it's really different today. In the virtual world, I make sure that they look like they're ready for an interview that would be in person. So the setting should be right. They should have already thought about the lighting. They should be well prepared for that interview, just like they would for any other position as a job. I expect someone to be poised and articulate as much as possible. I realize you're not a dietitian yet, you don't know all of that. And then, knowing behind the scenes in the application process that we like people who are seasoned, either have worked a little bit in a healthcare institution or in food service. We have a few second career people, and they're just a little bit more worldly about what's going on. So if you go straight from college into an internship, it might be a little bit more challenging for you.
Of course. So what do you recommend students focusing on when they're doing that application?
Well, to be thorough in the application, and if you're writing an essay, as we require 2 of them, that it's well written, have multiple eyes upon it. There should not be any errors on that. You have plenty of time to get that correct. And it doesn't have to be that verbose either. I think just, getting to the point of things, just like in an interview questions, they don't demand a litany of answers. They just need a good terse, paragraph. So I would make sure in the application that, again, everything, your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. You make sure that you've given us everything that you have done. I think some people skip out on stuff. They forget about things they actually have done. That might be beneficial that we know that. And yeah, just don't forget anything. Like we give extra points for somebody being bilingual in any language, or you have a master's degree. So make sure those things are clear to us. Or if you have a ServSafe certificate, so those are very helpful.
Yeah, the little things that kind of don't really resonate with us that it might be beneficial to you are like big green check marks.
Absolutely. I mean, anything you've done, it's helpful.
Of course. So I know you mentioned that you have two essays that you have students write for your program. Is there any other supplemental information that you guys look for?
No, the other, if you call it supplemental information, it's just, the grades basically. So your general grades from the colleges you might have attended in the DPT. No, that's basically it. Within the body of the application, it talks about any kind of volunteer opportunities or community opportunities or research opportunities that you've taken advantage of. So that's covered in that. But yeah, those are the only 2 things.
Great. So I know some programs have a clinical focus, some have a community focus, some have a food service focus. What's the focus of your program?
It is definitely acute clinical. The predominant number of weeks in the internship, of which there are 40 something, are going to be an acute clinical. We have some very complex patients. We are the only teaching or institution medical school in the county, and probably even wider than that. So we get a unique set of patients. Even the hospitals nearby send us their very complex patients that they can't take care of. So our interns benefit from that, in that they get to see that. We have all solid organ transplants. We have BMT, we have burn, we have oncology, a national oncology center here. So they'll get a deeply steeped in acute clinical care. And then a good portion of that in the outpatient world. So again, in oncology, our Center for Integrative Medicine, various other therapies, cystic fibrosis, and then our general nutrition areas that we house. But they're, bariatrics and weight management and eating disorders. So there's a lot. If your goal would be to go to outpatient too, this would be definitely the internship for you. You'll get a lot of, at least looking at clinical skills from a lot of different therapists and how they manage their patients.
Great. So you mentioned that, your clinical and your outpatient is working within that hospital. Where do you typically send students for their community rotation?
Great question. One I might not be able to answer for you off the top of my head.
That's okay.
I know we did, well, community, if you want to consider WIC, I know there are some other public health entities that we have. That's a great question. That now you stumped me. So, so I apologize about that. WIC is one, and we don't have very many others. So we don't have a lot of community rotations. We had schools. We do send them, which is not, well, if you want to call it community campus. So that's not, it's the other side of us here. We're on the health side, campus side. So they do go there and learn food service. But, yeah.
Awesome. So I looked and there were 3 total DI programs in San Diego. So what sets your DI program apart from the other ones in the San Diego area?
And what are the other 2?
I believe USD has one, and I believe SDSU has one. It's either SDSU or WIC. I think it might be WIC.
WIC definitely has one. SDSU does not have one. So
okay, so I guess it might be USD.
May not to my knowledge, but that's okay. Yeah. So I'm glad I asked. Ours is probably the biggest and most predominant one of all. I know that WIC has one, but the VA has the other one. Sorry, I even know that. We have them over here all the time. So what limits them, then their focus becomes a bit more community, like in WIC. And I don't think they would get, they definitely wouldn't get the acute clinical that we have here. Even our VA, the VA has 6 interns annually. Their biggest advantage, of course, they pay them. So, and hence many people want to go there, and I don't blame them. But they don't see as wide variety of patients that we do, our acute clinical, because you will get predominantly older male patients, not solely. And they do have agreements with other places to go see different sets of patients, but I think there are definitely limitations. And I said it earlier without repeating, but we get the most complex patients in the county. So I think we probably have the best rounded internship in this vicinity.
Awesome. How long is your program?
Well, that's another great question. I don't know. Because it changed in COVID, we had to shorten in our first year of COVID, which is last year. And so I think we lengthened it this week. So it confuses me, but I want to say it's around 42 weeks.
Okay. And then
Right.
do you guys have any elective opportunities for students?
We do.
during-
We have electives. So that at the end of the year, so March, April-ish, they can choose to do that for a couple of weeks, wherever, either someplace they've been that they really like, that they want to explore more, or they can go outside of here and do something else. Yeah,
Great.
plenty of great opportunity for that. And then we have, I'm gonna forget the name of it now. Oh my gosh, I'll think of it in just a second. But anyway, yes, they have that opportunity. So, and most of them just end up selecting exactly a place that they think they might like to work.
Mhm.
And that out well for them.
Awesome. Do you feel like your program allows for students who have like a variety of interests, or do you think you tailor more towards students with a clinical interest?
Well, you know, I've had one recently ask, recent like this last week, you know, about sports nutrition, and that's just not something we focus on. But I don't know any internship that would give you a sports nutrition focus. I really don't. So it is something that you're going to have to work on post any internship if you wanted to do something like that. We have a sports nutritionist on staff. She does outpatient, but she does literally everything. And then we do have a week of sports nutrition with another dietitian. So, and I don't mean to focus on one thing, but then our USA Olympic Training Center is just down the street from us. So if you wanted to reach out to them, you could. So I think in that we really have a clinical focus or an outpatient focus. But if in the future you wanted to delve into, you know, we have cystic fibrosis, we have burn, we have a NICU with an amazing dietitian who runs that. So, but again, all of those, I think I'm saying they're all clinically focused. But I think you can explore other opportunities. I think we have, it would give you such a great rounded basis, you know, joining us and learning from us, that you could virtually do anything outside of here. So.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like when I went into undergrad, I'm like, okay, I can either work in a hospital helping people lose weight, I could feed people, or I could work in a community. But it's interesting now that I'm learning, as you know, going through that journey, that it's not only having people go through bariatric surgery, it's NICU, it's PICU, it's working with people in burn units, like you said. Like, we don't think about that at 18, 19, 20 years old, but we're going into the internship, we're like, whoa, look at all these different things that we could do. So yeah, I feel like it's great for people who are strongly into clinical to be able to have more time at those rotations, to really spend more time in positions that they care about.
Well, you know, if you went into public health, it would be so interesting to you to see, you know, the patients we see here that are hospitalized, because then you can reflect upon what happens in the community with them, and even from a public health perspective, you know, so you can see the results of what happens in the public, where they end up. So, and we do have, like public health, we have one of our research rotation is one with a well-known public health practitioner. So, you know, so there is that opportunity, but again, we don't have a public health either. But yeah, to any of those things, you can just, when you learn this, then you can help anywhere.
Most definitely. So where do you see a lot of your graduates from your dietetic internship go career-wise after they complete your program?
Mostly hospitals. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them have gotten work nearby, but most of them, clearly hospitals is where they go. You know, it's what they're comfortable with. I'm sure they expand. We don't follow them for long. You know, the first year or so, the old saying was, you know, the first year, just do clinical and then decide what you want to do. So I think they still do that. And then they decide where they want to branch out to. Yeah, I wouldn't pigeonhole myself or yourself into something that you thought, well, I do like that, but, you know, figure it out first. So you don't want to, there are no wrong turns, because my career is quite twisted, and I still ended up okay. So
that's a good piece of advice. So I know you guys don't have a master's associated with your program, correct?
Correct.
With the rule or the requirement coming up in 2024, are you guys shifting in that direction? Do you have any talks about it, or what does that look like?
Well, funny, I had a conversation with yet another person yesterday, a gentleman, who was asking the very same thing. So we're already in conversations with the campus side because they have a master's in public health run by the same researcher I just mentioned. So, and the initial conversations were quite positive. They didn't think it would be much of an issue to get us there. So I'm, when Janine, the Dietetic Internship Director, returns in January, I hope sometime in the early part of the year we'll get those talks going again. And we are definitely hoping to have it by the time the requirement is in place. That is our goal. But there are lots of steps to that for people who would still want to come to our internship already having master's degrees, which happens today even. So we have to have these two tracks, one for those that have a combined program and others who are just coming to us for the internship. So we have to figure that out.
I feel like a lot of internships are in that boat right now. Like, what do we do?
Yeah, what do we do? I mean, the easiest route is to say, we're not going to do a master's and you have to come to us with a master's. But that may limit our pool of candidates too much. Although everybody's going to be getting masters. I mean, there's just no doubting. So we're going on that path.
Great.
So we're headed.
I guess I can finish with, what's one piece of advice you have for students that are going to be applying within the next couple of months for DICAS?
Gosh, I don't have any. I would say math. I think I wrote that on my paper. Know your math. It seems like something that people just forget about. Like, no, we do a lot of math, a lot of math. So, but that's not something for the interview. Just be positive and prepared in your interview process. Do your application thoroughly and be excited about wherever you go, because it'll still lead to the same credential, no matter where you are.
Great.
And
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time to talk to us today.
Absolutely.